Blake, how old do you think I act?
Well, during the day, 13. At 8:30 p.m., 94.
Welcome to the Church Gear Podcast, where we pull the tech out of the booth and onto the stage to share the most outlandish stories and hidden wisdom from the tech trenches. And now, here are your hosts.
I'm your host, Blake Hodges, a man who hopes he never loses his infinite stamina, and I'm here with my co-host who couldn't stay up past 11 p.m. to save my life, Toby Walters.
I have stayed. I'm trying to think the latest I've stayed up in the recent years. And I mean, it might have been midnight one time, but that's brutal for me. And Blake, we, a few weeks ago had our staff Christmas party and we did Mad Libs as a group. And one of the things we were looking for a number. And so the description was the age that Toby acts.
I thought that was a great prompt.
How old did your team say that I acted?
We were narrowing in between what was the age of 6th to 8th grade.
That's literally what my team was doing. And
Toby, I was on your team. Do you not remember that?
I'm trying to block it out of my memory.
How dare you? I thought we did a great Mad Lib together. I was so stoked when I saw I was on your team.
So 3 of our teams did somewhere around 11 to 12 years old. And then one team did 100. And so, yes, apparently I act either like a middle schooler or a 100-year-old grandpa.
Hey, you got range. You got range, I guess.
And speaking of 100, Blake, is this our 100th episode?
Oh my gosh, checks notes. It is our 100th episode.
Yes.
We've been doing this for a whole century now.
I mean, this is a big deal.
Yeah, so we're going to treat it like a big deal, right? We planned a big thing for it, didn't we?
Do you know how many times I've fired you in 100 episodes?
I know how many times you fired me the past. We'd have to calculate that up.
Yeah, well, that'll be a fun one. But I figured for the 100th episode, which is a big deal, we'd tell a little story about our biggest pickups ever.
Okay, sounds good.
So the first one that kind of qualified in that gigantic category, and I always go back to it as like, this was our first huge, filled up an entire semi pickup, and it was Elevation Church out in Charlotte. Have you been out to Charlotte, Blake?
I haven't. I try to stay away from the Carolinas because they make me sad that I don't live there. And I also, if I'm in Carolina, I'm going to blow off work and go to Charleston. So you knew better than to send me.
There you go. So Elevation was super fun to meet that team and to fill up an entire semi, obviously. And then another one was, we went to, so Saddleback was a huge pickup, just like the price of the gear, just because they had a bunch of high-end lenses. But the whole pickup pretty much fit in a box.
I don't understand gear, man. You can't guess. Hey, that'd be a fun game. Let's put a bunch of gear out and have laymen come up, like people like me.
Yeah.
And you have to guess what it would actually cost. Because I bet you could get some wild answers.
So these pickups can be a little bit all over the place as far as how big they are. And so, you have a truckload from Elevation, then you have a box from Saddleback, and they're both about the same price, which is crazy. And then we have when Prestonwood took down their Claire rig, that was 2 truckloads. That rig was so big.
Man, it was a big rig, and then it was a big rig hauling it here. We had to, what was it, 5 trucks we had to rent for that, actually?
No, it was 2 trucks.
I think it was 7. How many trucks did Taylor Swift have for her tour? It was all of those.
What is it, 70 trucks or something?
So it was 70 trucks.
So, Blake, did you see the picture of Mike Smith from Prestonwood standing next to his Claire array speakers and then his new D&B soundscape speaker?
I didn't, but I did see the video of Mike Smith spinning one of these speakers, which was super fun.
Yeah.
If I had to work at a church, I would really want to work at Prestonwood.
It looks like a fun one.
Him and Brian Bailey make it look like a good time.
Yeah. And then recently we were out with the boys at Gateway, and as some of these massive churches do that have multiple campuses all over the city, they have a central warehouse, and Gateway has a central warehouse, and they had just unbelievable amounts of gear from the last 10 years that had just been piling up. And so again, we filled up an entire 26-foot semi with gear from Gateway, and thankfully all of them have their forklift certification.
Not like us.
A few of us are certified at Church Gear, but definitely not you, Blake.
Oh, no. Toby is, though. Toby was actually rocking that forklift pretty good back in the day.
And so, they're rocking the forklift. They're pulling stuff off shelves from everywhere. And, the team is, Charlie and Ryan are out there just getting it all. it's a giant game of Tetris, Blake. You know this.
Oh, I've done a gear run. You're trying to fit it all in there perfectly so it doesn't fall all and break as you're going up the rickety driveway back at the old barn. And then Brian's Gonero's going, Blake, why didn't you pack this better?
And I see a theme of these pickups, Blake, when they're in big trucks that you're not on them.
Yeah, I avoid those. It's a scary time.
Are you scared of the big truck?
I'm very scared, and I'm not afraid to admit it.
And there was one other just massive pickup that I remember, and I didn't go on it. So it was kind of like,
Is that because you were scared?
I was not scared. I think I was on probably some other pickup or just had 47 podcast appointments like you put me on some weeks, Blake. But yeah, so Church on the Move in Tulsa had their entire Vertex system, which what's a Vertex, Blake?
That's a speaker.
Oh, I'm proud of you. Who makes it?
D&B.
No. Nice try. So Brian and Jared, our old driver, ended up going out, and it was actually a training trip for Jared. This was like his first trip ever. And so Brian said, okay, well, I need to like teach you how to get a 26-foot truck. And so they got a 26-foot truck, and they get to Church on the Move and quickly realize that, oh, there's no way all of this is going to fit in one truck because it was all palletized. So Blake, if you have, 60 speakers, you can play Tetris. But if they are strapped onto pallets, you just have to load in the pallets full of speakers. You can't keep stacking up on them. Does that make sense, Blake? I know it's very confusing for you.
No, that makes sense. You slide those things in there, just like how you can slide pizza into a box. You can't stack pizza, but you can slide it in there. Same way.
Very well done, Blake. So we ended up with 2 truckloads of this gigantic Vertex rig with all the amps and the hardware and everything coming back from Church on the Move. So yeah, I think, 5 gigantic truckload pickups, and one of which was a box. Thank you, Saddleback.
Yeah, that's fun. And, someone else that I'd like to put in a van and ship across the country so I could hang out with him, a man who likely doesn't miss that old Verteg rig, the production director at Church on the Move, Jonathan Basquez. Jonathan, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Did I get your last name right?
I think you did. You were close. I'll give it to you.
There we go.
Yep. No, I do miss the Vertec rig just for the memories, but the sound of it and where it was going after many years of wear and tear, I'm glad it's gone.
And what did you guys replace yours with?
We have L Acoustics K2 rig for our 2 center hangs, Cara 2 for our outfills, and then we have some A15s for some far side fills.
Okay, if you guys ever want to trade for a Vertec rig, we know where to get one. You can go back for that nostalgia.
Oh yeah, we call that vintage in the biz.
Yeah, very vintage.
All right, let's back up to some other vintage things, some lies and truths from Jonathan's past. All right, here we go. Number 1, mixed a club show for August Burns Red and frequently mix a 4HIM artist. For him?
Blake. Yes, for him.
I didn't know if it was like HDMI.
I feel like just, reliving the memory just for fun where you pronounced it McHammer.
Well, I still think he should rebrand it
and NSYNC in sync.
That is one I
Blake,
do
you're
regret.
So cute.
Number 2, how about you read these in 2024 so then you can mess up the pronunciations. Number 2, lied my way into mixing a full band.
Okay.
That'd be pretty meta if that was his lie. Number 3 was trained in Pro Tools and quickly realized I was gifted in that area.
Okay.
Number 3, did a 3 a.m. church load-in for 4 years.
Oof.
52-foot semi, laying carpet, flying a PA.
That sounds awful. I sure hope that's his lie. For his sake, but I hope it's not for our sake.
No,
I want to hear that story.
Yeah, that's a scar. That's real. Number 5, sound check song is Pretty Brown Eyes.
Who sings Pretty Brown Eyes, Blake?
A beautiful woman. Number 6, I actually have no idea. Number 6, mixed and played bass at front of house. Oh, it's one of our yes.
Yep.
Do you have video of this, Jonathan? Because I'd love to.
Wait. You don't know if it's his lie or not. You got to wait to find out.
I was trying to trick him, Toby.
Calm down.
I was trying to trick him for us.
Calm down. Okay, do you have a feeling here?
Yeah, I'm going to say it's number 2. I bet he's being super meta on us and he didn't have to lie his way into mixing a full band. I bet that band was like, please mix for us.
Okay. I'm going to guess the lie is that he trained in Pro Tools and quickly realized he was gifted in the area. I'm going to guess that Just randomly, he's like, I am terrible at Pro Tools.
I have such regrets. I bet you're right. Okay, I've got the full band and Toby's got Pro Tools. Jonathan, what's the lie?
Toby, you're right. That is the lie.
Said most of our guests every episode.
Look, his wife has messaged me and said that we need to stop affirming him. It's giving him a big head at home. So
are you just not great at Pro Tools?
Oh, I hate Pro Tools with all my being. I can fiddle around with it, but we're not getting much. Early on in my internship here at Church on the Move, I was put into our Pro Tools room for, almost a whole day, probably a solid 6 hours. Got nowhere. And I was immediately like, this is never going to be my life. So yeah, I don't go in Pro Tools anymore. That's not my thing.
Blake, this could be your moment where you could challenge a extremely talented production person to see who can get better at Pro Tools faster.
Isn't Pro Tools what we use for podcast mixing?
Editing.
Yeah, I used to. Okay. Well, I use GarageBand, but I could do a podcast. So
sure.
There we go. Okay. Tell us about that. If we're going to pick at this scar, because that sounds like a painful memory, but that 3 a.m. church load in for 4 years. I don't think I understood the 4 years part. 4 years, 52.
You had to do that for 4 years. Every week for 4 years.
Yeah.
No.
Did that for 4 years. It was my, it would be my third year here at Church on the Move. And we launched our portable location. It was our Glenpool facility. And it was a ballroom conference center that we loaded in. So got concrete floors. You have, it's just, sometimes you'd walk in, beer was all over the floor. Oh. Like you never knew what you're walking into. We walked in one day, a pig was gutted out on one of the tables, just left. Like we walked in some weird things.
This sounds like the podcast studio here.
Yeah, this sounds like a horror movie. For a second, I was like, free beer. And then I'm like, free pig entrails. Gracious.
There was a day that we walked in and there was 2 fully loaded kegs out on the dock. So I was like, hey,
yeah. Did you help yourself?
Free for the taking.
That's right.
No, they were quickly gone after we loaded in. So don't know where those disappeared to.
Uh-huh.
How did you sustain that for 4 years?
I only did it for 4 years and then I quickly moved on. No, that was a grueling season for me. 3 a.m. is not a friendly hour. You learn that even if you're staying up till 10, you might as well just take a quick nap. We tried it all. Do we did not go to sleep? Do we go to sleep? Do we take an hour nap, 2-hour nap? What do you do? And then you have loadout, which you were completed about 3 p.m. So it's a solid 12-hour day.
Oof.
But yeah, we laid carpet down that was perfectly labeled. So it'd be systematized to be laid out correctly each time. Depending on the week, if somebody dropped some carpet, you might have some mold growing, a nice plant on one of the carpet tiles.
Nasty.
Yeah, but then we had a PA that would get flown every week with subs. It was a full-blown Church on the Move setup, so we didn't hold back at all. It was everything that you would expect.
Blake, when we get to heaven and we see all the production guys way ahead of us in line, I'm just not going to be surprised.
Oh, same. I'm like not complaining. I'm just happy to be here. I can't believe you did that for 4 years. I don't think I would have stuck that out for even 3 months. That would just change your entire life, having that as your anchor of a Sunday. Woof. Okay. Let's talk about a happier memory then. What about mixing and playing bass at front of house? Tell us about that.
Yeah, so that was in my younger age. I was probably 16 and I was playing bass, learning how to play bass, and they were like, we're down a bass player in youth group. We need to figure out how we can do that. And I was like, well, we've got a wireless pack. I can mix at front of house. I can play wirelessly, put my headphones in so I could stay in time, and we'll be fine. So I did that one service. They loved it. Of course, I never did that again, but yeah, that was a one and done moment.
Blake, I feel like so many of us in church production, church worship have those stories. Like I led worship from drums several times just because we didn't have a drummer.
Gracious.
I know.
That sounds impossible. Okay. Well, now that we've kind of, touched on your background some, let's get into your tech background. You're the production director at one of the most influential churches in the country. So, how did you get to this spot in your career? Give us, the other details when you weren't, carrying out pig entrails and beer. What were the other things you did to get your way to Church on the Move?
Yeah. So early on, I've always heard about Church on the Move, knew about it. The church I originally came from in Albuquerque, New Mexico, was a sister church to Church on the Move. The pastor was from Church on the Move. So it was just, hey, Church on the Move, it's a normal thing that you always heard about. We had guest speakers coming there all the time. So yeah, started an internship in 2011 and slowly just moved my way up. I was an audio engineer under Andrew Stone and Jesse Burr for quite some time. Jesse Burr's over at Mike Reynolds now. We're still close, stay in contact, so
Yeah.
which is great. So I was an audio engineer. You've already heard my 3 a.m. story. Did that for 4 years, which was great. I mean, all these gruesome stories, it all leads to some just trial and error, but also just some great memories to always live by. And you learn from those as an early age. I mean, I was 20. See, I would have been 20 doing all of that. So you learn quickly and you start doing that. But started doing that, handed it off to some people. You'll start seeing the trend. I was the starter. So I started out at that Glenpool campus, launched it, stayed there for 4 years, but then handed it off to someone else to take over. Came back to our Tulsa campus just to help Andrew and the team just with volunteers. At that time, we were doing a second service up at our 180 building. We have 2 large facilities on our Tulsa location, so we were doing 2 simultaneous services. So helped out there, getting that all set up and ready to go. Mixing's always been a part of me. Started mixing when I was at a young age, 10 years old. Of course, as you see in my 5 Truths and a Lie, I lied my way into mixing a band because when I said I knew how to mix, it might have been a passport that I knew how to mix. You know, the old school passports with the hot and cold temperature, and that's how you got better EQ out of it. So I mixed that for quite a few years, and then I was just like, I can mix. Let's just start mixing for youth, and that's how I got into mixing and never turned back. But yeah, through my career here at Church on the Move, it's been mixing audio through various different venues. Helped launch our Broken Arrow campus that is now thriving and running. And then I in the last year and a half with Andrew still as the production director, I was really working alongside him, just growing, learning how to mix, learning just how production managing and directing went. And then, as we all know, he suddenly passed away. And those years of really being close and learning and growing from him really led to me transitioning quickly into the role.
And so for some of our listeners who don't know who Andrew Stone is, I mean, his name is kind of one of the most influential in the modern church production space. You got to, I guess, be kind of side by side with him for a couple of years. Was that just a hugely influential experience for you to grow in your skill set?
Yeah. So that's a question I get a lot of, is just, how was it working alongside Andrew and getting all that time? I know a lot of people and listeners that have known of Andrew or MXU in that season. I mean, you just glean from all of the knowledge that he had. It's truly special, and there's not a lot of words that can captivate all those moments, stories that he just poured into you. I mean, back then I regretted it, but now I loved it. I mean, we would be done with the set change, and I mean, Christmas, we did big Christmas shows, set change happening. We're getting done at like 3 a.m. Go to the office to see, is there anything else before we leave? And he wanted to tell stories. So we're there for another hour on top of it, of old road stories or just dumb things that we've done. And those are the times that I'm just like, oh man, I remember that story and that helped me in a season, or I remember this story and that helps me in this moment that something broke, or just to laugh about. But yeah, Andrew was as caring and genuine as he portrays himself through podcast and through interactions with people. He was that guy. And he was also the very critical and very straightforward person as well. Very in the middle in that area. He loved people, but he also wasn't afraid to speak his mind and speak it well.
Yeah. And so with him suddenly passing away, did you immediately step up into that role as production director?
I did. So that day that he passed away, it was a weird time period, because it was just, he was gone and the team was looking to me. I didn't know this, but talking to the guys that have been around Andrew for a long time and that worked on staff, they knew he was already grooming me to be this production director. He never told me that, but now through all the conversations that I had with him and just the opportunities he gave me, I go, oh yeah, that all makes sense now. It was just puzzle pieces to a bigger picture that I didn't see. But yeah, that day I took over and started leading the team. There was a grace period in that moment as leadership was figuring out. I mean, it's not like somebody transitioning from a job and going, hey, I'm putting my 2 weeks or my month notice in. This was, nobody knew that day was coming.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, as we all know with church is coming. That was earlier in the week, and church had to still go on. So immediately it was, as Andrew, he used to say, grab the bull by the horns and just start going.
Yeah.
So that's what I did. And yeah, we made it through that weekend. It was a rough weekend. And yeah, we just kept going. Then that's kind of the culture and pace that we've kept is, hey, our past is our past and we honor it. We respect it. We learn from it. But also your future is the day that you kind of just seize the moment and start moving forward at that point.
And we know with so many church production leaders, like they start at a very young age with very like high responsibility. And so how was just those first few months or even that first year for you as you were stepping into these huge shoes and trying to figure it all out and lead a team that you weren't, you're partially prepared for, but you're never quite prepared for that moment?
Yeah, it was interesting because I was leading a team that once led me. I have a guy that's still on our staff. He's a 35-year-old veteran at Church on the Move. He's been on staff for 35 years, so launched the church with the founding pastor. I'm leading him. I'm his supervisor. I had other guys that have more tenure in the production world than I've ever had and had opportunities that I'll never have. And I was leading those guys. So it was a very weird point for me internally, like, how am I going to lead these seasoned people that have given their life to production no more? I feel like I'm a kid. I was 20, I would have been 25 at the time. So
wow,
I'm young.
Yeah.
I'm 30 now. So I'm still young and had some season through it. But yeah, 25, I'm just trying to figure out my personal life. What do I want? And here I am trying to lead a large organization, going through a very, also at that time, we were going through a very big organizational change. That's when Whit George, the former creative director, was passed the church on from his dad, Willie George. And he was still in that season of like, where is this church going? Where do I stand in it? So there's a lot of things that are shuffling in this time. So helping lead through that season, helping lead my team through a season of mourning, but also a new season that's about to come. So all of those things wrapped into insecurities of my own, going, Andrew was a big person that had a big dream for the church and had a big dream for the local church. How am I supposed to step into that and fill that gap?
Yeah.
For about a year, I tried. All right, I'm just going to be like Andrew, do the Andrew things. That led me nowhere. That probably led me to more defeat in some areas than it did help me grow. So after that season, I really leaned to the fact of, you know what, Andrew's shoes are Andrew's, and I'm dishonoring him by trying to lead and be like him. And really, I need to start leading like myself. He gave me lessons. He gave me opportunities. Start using those to really pioneer the path that we're going as a church. I mean, because the church was changing. It wasn't the Church on the Move where we're flying people in the air and we're doing a thriller theme by Grinch. Set, like, it's been completely different since that season. So I was really leaning towards, okay, I need to start being myself in this season and leading. And I mean, the Holy Spirit really helped me, not to get super ultra spiritual, but that was a big thing for me. Like the Holy Spirit, I look back and I'm like, I don't remember me doing these things. I did them. There's marks of me doing them. But yeah, that season was very heavily leaned on God because I would have not been able to get through that season, both mourning, leading, and figuring out where we're going after that.
Yeah. Blake, how does it feel when you are the exact same age as our guest, but they're so much more accomplished than you?
A great relief because I don't have to be them. I can't fathom going through that season, like having to step up while you're just extremely sad. I mean, that is a tough thing to do. Like, were there any, and it's totally good if you don't have any of these that come to mind, but like, do you have any memories of when you would think like, oh, these are those stories he told me late at night? Like, did any of those stories particularly come into play that you would recall, like a story that you could tell us that he had told you and how you use that lesson? Or I don't know. I guess I'm just imagining you sitting at his feet at the end of the long night and he's telling you a story, and I'm just like kind of wanting to us all like hear a moment of that if that comes to mind.
Yeah. There's actually a couple of things that come to mind. So early on, Andrew gave me three things that he said, hey, to fit in these roles, these are the things that you really need to start focusing on and leaning on. And I mean, I've morphed them a little bit just to match my character now, but it was you're the right person for the job. That was one thing that I had to keep telling myself. I still tell myself that today. You get into the mindset of where people are, it's keeping up with the Joneses. Oh man, they're doing this cool thing. We're not doing that cool thing.
Yeah.
They got this new piece of equipment. We don't have that new piece of equipment. We don't have that budget like they do. Keeping up with the Joneses and going, no, I'm the right person for the job. We don't have those things, but I'm going to keep pioneering what we have, and we're going to make it as good as we can with the equipment, with the budget, and with our personnel. So that's been a huge thing for me, is just really leaning in, because you can get really caught up in your own thoughts, more so than nobody's even saying things to you, but yet all of these thoughts are just taking over you. So you're the right person for the job. The other ones were speak your mind, but speak it well, and speak it at the right time. That was a big thing for me. I mean, right after Andrew passed, I mean, we went into COVID. And
what a time.
Oh, bro, you don't even know. There's little details within that gap that it was just, oh man, like not only am I losing a mentor, a huge friend, a brother, but also we're changing the trajectory of a church. So Missio Day was a season we launched into, which is building the kingdom expansion. That was in 2019. This weekend here at Church on the Move, we're about to launch our campaign for that vision to expand our churches. So that season started, and Whit also started to change the church culture and how he wanted to see the church grow. So we were in that season, also a down season. It was a season of, oh man, is the church growing? What are we doing? The seats are empty. We were covering them up with black cloths because the church was not as packed as we used to have it. I mean, 2,000 seat auditorium, and it's empty. As Whit says it, he grew the church backwards, and he jokes around with it. And he says, pastors thank me because I grew the church backward and grew their congregation. So we were in a very difficult season within Andrew passing, and then COVID came. And it's like, what are we doing? I mean, during COVID, we did close to 300 streams out within that season, just trying to grasp people. So not only was it, oh man, the world's in complete, utter chaos, but also we're here at work, working probably more than we've ever worked just to keep church alive.
Yeah.
Which was great because we had the run of the mill. We stole things from people's offices to make sets. We did a bunch of things. My boss the other day goes, you know that lamp that was in my office? I saw it the other day in someone else's office. And I was like, I don't know where that happened.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it was that was a seasonal change in a lot of ways. So yeah. So speaking my mind was a big thing in that era of going, okay, I need to speak my mind because there's a lot of things we can't do, but I need to speak it wisely. I mean, I'm speaking directly to Whit and the leadership team. How am I doing this? And how am I doing it well? I'm a 25-year-old kid talking to these guys that have been around this church for years, senior leadership, and yet they're looking to me for advice. What can we do? How can we do it in a season that technology was the only outlet? So yeah, I mean, all those seasons, I mean, really thrusted me into this is life and this is leadership, and you're going to have to learn and act quickly.
Yeah. I was so captivated by your story. I want to make sure we didn't miss it. You said you had three things that he had.
Yeah, the third one.
Okay, yeah, there was a third. I thought there was a third one.
Yep. Sorry, I'm going to pull this up. So
No,
I
you're
don't miss
good.
it.
I feel so lucky that we're getting to get some more wisdom from him, like here after the fact, and didn't want to
Yeah.
lose that third point.
Yeah. And then the last one is don't be a yes man, which that has been a pivotal thing for me. And people can get turned off by that by going, oh, so you're going to be the classic production jerk. And it's not that at all. It feeds into speaking your mind. Yeah, sorry, we can't do that right now. It's Christmas season and we have 1,000 other things going. But you know what? We can do that in a couple of weeks if you'd like it. It's those types of conversations that really are building culture, building bridges between different departments and areas, but also helping to create a culture that's like, hey, we're not just the jerks in black. We actually do care about all the things that you want. It's just, hey, if we can't do it right now. So I'm not just going to say yes because you may be the top senior executive. You're paying me to make these decisions and make them well for the whole organization.
Blake, I think you and I should be very honored that he said yes to coming on the Church Gear podcast, and we're recording in the middle of the Christmas season.
I think that you're very accurate. He could have spoke his mind and said, I am the right person for this podcast, but I do not have time to be on the
Or
podcast.
he's probably like, hey, this has nothing to do with Christmas production at church. Great. I'd love to take an hour off to do something silly and talk nonsense.
Hope so.
Jonathan, it may be the same answers you just gave, but there are 25-year-olds stepping into roles at churches all over America, and they're brand new production directors, and they have teams that have been there longer than them, that are older than them. Do you have any specific advice for those guys as they get started in their new roles to help have success?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing in that season was leaning on people that were smarter than me, that had more thoughts and ideas, because you can't do it on your own. There's no way you can do it on your own. And also, like I said earlier, is honoring the past, because the past is a big deal. The past is where you got. I mean, good or bad, it is where you are because of the people before you. So honoring those people as you step into a new leadership opportunity with people, continuing to honor the person before you. I mean, the more you dog the person, oh, why did they do it this way? Oh, this was dumb. Why did we do it this way? It doesn't do anybody any favors. One, it's going to bring your morale down, and it's not going to honor yourself because they're just going to go, well, what is he doing behind my back when I turn around?
Yeah.
So it's really honoring the people that you're surrounded by, even though you may disagree. You can be the smartest system tech in the room, but you know what? The person before you might have been the greatest leader.
Yeah.
Like there's just going to be different personalities that are going to shift. I am not Andrew Stone. And I mean, Andrew had some great talents mixing. I'm a good mix engineer. I'm not Andrew. But there are areas that I probably am better at than Andrew, which I honor him in that. And I honor him in all the things that he did and he taught me, but it's just personality differences and just the way our brains think. But that's the biggest thing, is just honoring the people before you. And then the three things that I said: don't be a yes man. I even forgot them.
Well, luckily our listeners
I made a note.
Can rewind about 7 minutes and hear them all again.
Yeah. I'm the right man for the job. Don't be a yes man, and then speak your mind. Those are some big things to always keep in mind too.
That's great.
Well, and what I love in those things is like kind of the spirit of it. It sounds like is be a collaborator. Like don't say yes to everything, but then also try to make it work. Like be an active participant. And that sounds really great.
Jonathan, were there any specific things that Andrew did, or you as well, where you're creating systems and processes that you can hand over to a new volunteer, or hand over to a new person that's coming in, or the next person that's going to end up doing your job? Maybe there's not an actual notebook, but do you have systems like that built in? Yeah.
So right now, I'm building off of something Andrew he started, was making our systems as similar as possible. So currently we have three churches. Here in the future, we'll be launching our fourth church, and then we also have a full K through 12 school.
Wow.
That has a football field, baseball field, softball field, two gyms. So there's a lot of moving pieces at Church on the Move.
Yeah.
But is making sure our systems are as systematized as possible.
Mm-hmm.
You can get into the rut real quick, especially when you have production managers at each location doing their own thing, ingrained with the churches, that you can lose vision. And you can also lose the identity of like, hey, what are we here to do? And what does this church on the move sound or look supposed to be like? So it's each area is completely different, but it's the foundational things of the systems to go, hey, let's just say someone leaves tomorrow from our Broken Arrow campus. Well, somebody can jump in real quick because it's the same systems that we have everywhere. So that was one big thing that we've just continued to grow on. Wireless systems are the same. Consoles, we're slowly getting to our PAs to be in the same things. But yeah, that's a big thing. And then Andrew brought me along, and I said, and that's one thing that I continue to do and have strived to do even more is bring people along with you. You doing all the things all the time isn't going to help anyone, especially if you're planning to transition here in the next 10 years. Like you need to have somebody that's learning the things that you have. And also there's a day where like Andrew, sudden things happen and you're not going to expect it. But yet if you have people that know a majority of the things you know, people can step in and band together as a group to collectively make these decisions and continue the church going forward.
Yeah. We've heard, so much about Church on the Move over the years. You guys have been really influential, especially in the church production space. Is there anything unique you can think of like, well, this is the Church on the Move way of doing things in your production department? Is there anything like you guys are proud of that kind of is different about you guys or set apart, or whether it's, the way your team functions or personality or even just the gear you use?
Yeah. So one thing that Andrew set up a long time at Church on the Move, and it's continued to be the Church on the Move kind of identity and thing that we've kept is details matter. A lot of details can get mixed along the way of, oh, we didn't think about putting a cable over here. We didn't think about running these cables correctly so they would be tucked around, or even in building installs of, hey, how do we have cable troughs around so it's easier to run cable through? Just little details along the way. We have a poster out here that say details take us from good to great. That was a thing that we've continued and modeled and continue to get better at. My team isn't like the biggest and the best in the business, but they are young and they are learning and growing. And yeah, that's the biggest thing that's different right now is there's not a lot of older church guys that are tech guys that want to be in the church as much anymore. So I'm starting to grow the younger generation so that they can be more active and also help develop along the way, but also finding partners of people that you can partner with like DC Pro, Mike Reynolds, those guys to help teach and cultivate in areas that I'm not as skilled at to keep these guys learning. So yeah, those are some unique things that we're doing right now.
Yeah, and lucky for you guys to have Daniel Cannell and Stephen Aruda just still hanging around the city and can stop
they
by
still
and
attend church.
Yeah,
yep.
help out. Yeah, you guys have definitely produced some serious all-stars in the church production space.
Yeah, no, and that's a thing still right now is there's people that are like, hey, is that guy available to come work for me at my church? I'm like, whoa, not yet. Yeah, no, and that's the thing that we want to continue to do is be able to build people so that they can eventually go out to one of our other churches that are launching, or if there's a season that's right, them to go out to other churches to help instill things that they've learned.
Man, that is so amazing. And now I'm suddenly getting jealous and want to move to that city because so many of our friends are living there.
Yeah, what city is it, Blake?
Tulsa.
Yep. Have you ever been to Tulsa?
I've never been to Tulsa.
I've never been to Tulsa
Toby,
either.
we should go to Tulsa and hang out with our friends.
It's on my travel list this year to go to Tulsa and connect with all of our churches there. So I'm hoping to see Jonathan's beautiful face in person in maybe 6 months.
I'm going to put in my budget a big suitcase to hide myself in that you can take me with you to Tulsa. But that could go badly. I could get lost in luggage.
That sounds like a disaster to me.
That'd be a disaster. So, Jonathan, do you have any disaster stories you'd like to share with us about your days at Church on the Move? You're so calm, cool, and collective on this episode. Like, seriously, I can't fathom him like running around with his hair on fire.
He seems like a very well-prepared person.
You'd make me feel better about myself as a fellow 30-year-old if you'd also had a disaster in your life you could tell us about.
I have had disasters, but I've also, I'm a very, I have to think through things a lot. Just like, what if this breaks? What am I going to do? Like those 3 a.m.s when I was going to church, I was like, because we relied on volunteers. It's like, what happens if these volunteers don't show up?
Yeah.
Like, I need 8 people to unload this truck. If I only have 4, what are we going to do? So yeah, I'm always thinking through disaster scenarios. And that is one thing we do have here at Church on the Move is like plan B in all of our systems. But no, this actually happened to me recently. Shout out to a friend that helped me out in this. We were retuning one of our older rooms, a PA in the room, and this is a Friday. It's roughly 4:00 in the afternoon. We thought, oh, this will be an easy thing. It's an old SoundWeb Blue unit that we're about to get into.
Yeah.
It hadn't been updated. So as soon as we log in, it wipes the whole speaker system. And like that room has to be used.
Yeah.
In the next couple of hours because they were going to do some event in there. And then also the weekend it was coming. And that space is used by school and church. So it's a multi-purpose room. And I was sweating bullets, but I was like, okay, we'll figure something out. If I need to go call someone to go rent the speaker system, we'll just figure it out. It's 4:00 still. So for about an hour, just trying to like rack my brain of like, how do I need to get this going? One of the guy that was tuning the PA for me, he's just in the corner, just feeling horrible. He's like, why did we do this? We should have just left and just walked away. Luckily, a couple hours later, we were able to get it patched together. But yeah, that was one of the dumber things that I did. So if it's an old SoundWeb gear, just don't even touch it. Don't open it.
Yeah.
Just wait till it dies.
That's kind of like Blake.
Just wait till it dies.
Yeah, don't touch Blake. Just wait till he dies. It's fine.
Well, at this pace, that won't take long. Okay, so Jonathan, give us a tech takeaway, man, to wrap us on. I can't even fathom a tech takeaway from you. You've got so many years of wisdom here. So what would you pull from that? You've already given us so many. I feel unfair asking for another. I mean, he's given us so many already, but
You can ask for whatever you want, though, Blake.
can I get another tech takeaway from you, Jonathan?
That's fine. I mean, I could have said no.
Don't be a yes man.
He could speak his mind. Yep.
No. Yeah. Just I want to talk to the younger guys that are out there. I mean, I know it's hard, especially in this season of change. It can be even rougher, but really just lean in, gather people that are smarter around you, and really just grasp community in that season. Don't do it alone. That's probably the roughest and really the dumbest thing that you could do is doing it alone. But yeah, is just gather people around you and yeah, just know that you're doing the right things. You may do something dumb, but know that you're only going to learn from it.
Yeah.
You know, Todd gave us a tech takeaway on being brave enough to fail, and I've really embraced that. You know, just
You do it every day, Blake.
it's a good time. I relate, Jonathan. So, man, we can't thank you enough for coming on the pod. Is there any thing you'd like to plug? I would assume you want to distract from your company, or not from your company, from your church's website, so people don't come and find your other texts to pull them away from you. I know you're trying to keep them safe. So maybe the plug is don't reach out to Jonathan's people for a time. But you got anything you want to point people towards?
Yeah, no, I mean, you guys can always watch Church on the Move. I mean, there's several things out there that just show what we do behind the scenes. I know Collaborative and a couple other guys did some podcasts around what we're doing, both at our Broken Arrow and here at our Tulsa location, but also Mike Reynolds, DC Pro, Skylark AV, all those guys, solid people to work with. They've been great in helping me through all of the seasons that I've walked through in the last 5 years and really helped us get to a very systemized system to work within. So yeah, those guys are great.
Yeah, love all those guys.
Yeah, you. What was Toby? You had a tip in your MXU series that you did on that for them. You get by with a little help from your friends. That was one of your things. Like,
absolutely.
It's important to have friends. Thanks for mentioning those people. Well, Jonathan, I guess that's our episode, dude. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, pleasure to be with you guys. Blake, thanks for holding it together.
Thanks for hanging out with us. We hope to see you back next week for more absurd stories, tech takeaways, and overall buffoonery here at the Church Gear Studios.
Okay, Blake, how do you feel like we did for our 100th episode?
Like always, I think we were very unprepared, but I think our guest freaking brought it, and so it was great.
I feel like our guest was a home run on this one.
Oh, I'm gonna bring it back for series if we can beg him to show up.
Yeah, totally. And on our 100th episode, should we ask our listeners to do something special, like on socials for 100th? Maybe like they share their favorite episode of all time, and we'll see how the 100th plays against those favorite episodes.
That's a great idea. For real. If you've ever loved an episode, share that one now. Tag us in it. Maybe this is your favorite episode. I know it's a high contender for me. And if you don't have socials, if that's not your thing, just text it to a friend, you know? Toby, you got a friend you text this episode to, don't you?
Obviously, I have lots of friends.
All right.
Like 4.
There we go. So send it to your 4 friends.